Okay, I'm going to start by going over the first three here quick, and then we'll give you a little more time to finish the standard deviation if we need to. The mean, of course, is found by just adding up the numbers and dividing by how many are there. So before we do anything, what's n for this set of numbers? 7, because there are 7 numbers. Okay, so for our mean, we're going to add them up and divide by 7. So 2 plus 7 plus 13 plus 16 plus 16 plus 23 plus 28 divided by 7. So is that 9, 22, 38, 54, 57, 77, 105. Oops, 105 divided by 7, which is 15. So we have a mean of 15. For the median, to find the median, we must first put them in order. Well, I had the numbers in order, so that's done. Second is to find the position. Now, the position of the median is found by doing 0.5 times n. So here, 0.5 times 7 is 3.5. Now there's two possibilities. If that was a whole number, it would be between that location and the next one. If it's a decimal like this, that means we just round up and the median is in the 4th place, the 4th number in the list, which is 16. So our median is 16. Mode is the number that appears most often. In this list, what number appears most often? 16. Do you guys need another minute for to finish the standard deviation? Yeah. Okay. I'll give you one more minute or two to finish that up, and I'll come back to it. Okay, so let's finish this off. Standard deviation requires us to subtract the mean from each number. Of course, the first step is to find the mean, but we've already done that. So we're going to subtract that mean of 15 from each number. So 2 minus 15 is a negative 13. 7 minus 15 is negative 8. 13 minus 15 is a negative 2. 16 minus 15 is 1. 16 minus 15 is still 1. 23 minus 15 is 8. And 28 minus 15 is 13. Now remember, if we wanted to double check, we could add those up and they should add to 0. They would in this case, so we know that we haven't messed anything up so far. The next step then is to square each. So negative 13 squared is 169. Negative 8 squared is 64. Negative 2 squared is 4. 1 squared is 1. 1 squared is 1 again. 8 squared is 64. And 13 squared is 169. So adding those all up, we get what? 340, 404, 468. 472 when we add those up. Does that look correct? So we added them up. That is our 4th step. Our 5th step is we're going to divide by n minus 1. Since n is 7, n minus 1 is 6. So we're going to divide by 6. So what is that? 78.67. That look right? And then our last, of course, that would be the variance if we were asked for the variance. Our last step is to then square root 78.67, which is going to give us 8.87. What do you think? Any questions so far? Of course, the last thing we have to do is the range. The range is just the largest number, which was 28, minus the smallest number, which is 2, so it gives us a range of 26. If you can do those 5 things, you're well on your way to doing everything you need for statistics. Also, you need to make sure you know the graphs that we talked about, how to construct the graphs and read the graphs that we talked about. Okay, on. What's that? That's really for this course, that's really as far as we can really get into stats. I mean, we have the other thing you need to make sure you know is that bell curve we talked about last week and those percents. Of course, you can get the percents out of the book because you can use your book on the test. And make sure you know how to use those percents with the mean and the standard deviations and all that. Okay. Well, let's get on to our new stuff. The second half of Unit 2, the last 2 weeks of Unit 2 are on merchandising. And merchandising really involves 2 steps. We're going from some sort of a supplier. That supplier could be the manufacturer or it could be just a distributor, to some sort of a retailer, so a store of some sort, whether it's online or brick and mortar, to a customer or consumer. So tonight we're going to focus on this relationship between the supplier and the retailer. How we get from the distributor or manufacturer to the store that's going to interact with the consumers. So when we're doing that, we're looking at invoicing and stuff like that. To deal with invoices, we have to first get to the invoice price. What is the pricing system between suppliers and retailers is actually kind of complex. Not every retailer pays the same price for the same item. Now, in order to avoid issues with that, each item has a price, a listed price. But then each retailer that is purchasing those items from the supplier gets what is called a trade discount. And that trade discount or trade discounts reduce the price down to what the retailer is going to pay. Those trade discounts may be for several reasons. It may be what they call a good customer or a volume discount. Let's say that you run a store, and if you buy more than $30,000 worth of merchandise from this supplier every year, you're going to get a 3 or 4% discount next year because you're buying enough from them. It could be because you're in a geographical location where it's easy to ship. So there's a convenience discount. Just because it's easy for them to get it to you. There might be a product that they're pushing. They might have a new product that they're trying to push in your area or just trying to push in general. So you get a discount based on the product. Or there could be an incentive discount. Sometimes, okay, you're a good customer, you're established, you are going to receive a 4% discount every year. But during this quarter, if you can sell a certain amount of this type of product from us, then we're going to give you an extra 2% or whatever during the next quarter of the year. So there can be more than one discount applied for a trade discount. So let's say that you have earned, based on sales, you have earned an 8% trade discount from this particular supplier. And from that supplier, you purchase merchandise with list price of $820. How much do you pay? Well, this is a pretty straightforward problem. You can find 8%. 8 out of 100 is going to be how much out of 820? You're going to cross multiply and divide. 8 times 820 divided by 100 is going to be 65.6, $65.60. That is the amount of your discount. You want to know how much you're going to pay? So that's going to be 820 minus $65.60. So that's going to give us $754.40 is how much we're going to pay. So just some vocabulary here. The 820, of course, is the list price. The $65.60 is a trade discount. And the $754.40, which is what you pay, is considered to be, is called the net price. Now, we talked about percents a lot in our first unit. And something I should point out here is that the same concepts apply to these percents. That list price is 100%. The discount is 8%, which means the net price is 100 minus 8, or 92% of the list price. We could use what's called rates here. We could use there's called a single equivalent discount rate, or an equivalent discount. What we could do is take our take our list price of $820 and multiply it by, we have an 8% discount, so 0.08, which gives us our discount of $65.60. So that is the 0.08 is our discount rate. Pretty simple in this example because we just have that single discount of 8%. If we wanted to find the net price without finding the actual amount of the discount, the $65.60, what we could have done is looked at this here, where 100% minus 8% leaves us with 92%. 92% is the equivalent, the net price equivalency rate, or the equivalent, the net equivalent. So what we could have done is taken our $820 list price times 92% is 0.92 to get $754.40 as the net price. So this 0.92 is that single net equivalent. Right now, in an example like this, it's very simple to find those rates because there's a single percent. Let's do one more example, and then we'll move up to one a little bit more complex than that. So let's just say you receive a trade discount of 12%. Find the net price of items listed for $470. So 12% means what is going to be our net price rate here? Our net equivalent. Well, what's 100 minus 12? 88%, right? So the net price is going to be 88%. So to find the net price, all I have to do is take my $470 times 0.88. for $13.60. Any questions on that? Now this can be important because we can run into the opposite side of that. What is the list price of items with a net price of $729? Oops, come on. After a 10% trade discount. So when we're looking at this, we've got to use a little bit of our algebra here. Remember, it is list price times that net equivalent equals our net price. Now in this case, we're looking for the list price. The net equivalent is, well, 10% discount, so the net equivalent is 100 minus 10 would be 90%, or 0.9. And we got a net price of $729. So, to solve for the list price, we're going to divide by 0.9. So our list price, $729 divided by 0.9 is $810. Any questions? Okay. So those are if we have a single trade discount. But often we have multiple trade discounts, and it may look like this. You might get 8% just for being a good customer. Then you might have an additional 3% because of some incentive that you met in the last period, in the last sales period. That would be expressed as 8/3 trade discount. This is sometimes referred to as a chain trade discount, or sometimes simply as a chain discount. The reason it is listed like this is because an 8% discount and a 3% discount does not become an 11% discount. The discounts are not applied simultaneously. Simultaneously mean at the same time. They're applied consecutively, which means one after the other. So let's say that we have items with a list price of $200. What is going to be the net price? Well, first we're going to take the $200 and apply the 8% discount. So the net equivalent would be 92%, which is going to give us $184. Then we're going to take the $184 and apply the 3% discount, which gives us a net equivalent of $97. $178.48. Now it would be nice not to have to do this over, repeated like this, especially if we can get 3 or 4 discounts chained together. So there is a thing called a single net equivalent. And that single net equivalent is found by combining the two net equivalents. I have an 8% discount, gives me a 92% net equivalent, and a 3% discount gives me a 97% net equivalent. If I take that 0.92 times 0.97, I will get a single net equivalent of 0.8924. If I had taken my original list price of $200 times that single net equivalent of 0.8924, it would give me 178.48 as my equivalent, my net price, my single net price. Now, if I want to find the discount, there is something called a single equivalent discount. So the single discount equivalent or single equivalent discount is simply found by taking 1 minus my net decimal equivalent here, 0.8924. So that's going to give us 0.1076. What is that for? Well, that's if I just want to find the discount without having to find the net price. So I would take my list price of $200 times that 0.1076, which would give me $21.52 as my single equivalent discount or single discount equivalent. So let's look at an example here. Let's say you receive a trade discount, a chain trade discount of 9% for just being a good customer. You get a 4% for an incentive that you met. And for a certain special product that you're buying, you get an additional 6%. Find the net decimal equivalent, the net equivalent, and that single discount equivalent. Well, for the net decimal equivalent, we're going to look at the 946. 9% discount means we pay 91%. So that's a 0.91 times 4% discount means we're paying 96%, so that is 0.96 times 6% means we're paying 6% discount means we're paying 94%. So 0.94, 0.91 times 0.96 times 0.94 is 0.821184. That is the net decimal equivalent. To find the single discount equivalent is going to be 1 minus that, which will be 0.178816. That is the single discount equivalent. Any questions so far? Okay. So let's say that we get chain trade discount of 311.7 for items with list price of $12,400. Find one, the dollar amount of the trade discount, and 2, the net price. I'll give you a minute to find those, and then we'll go over it quick. Okay, so we have the 311.7 chain trade discount. 3% means we're left paying 97%, so 0.97 times 11 is going to become 0.89, and 7 will become 0.93. We multiply those together to give us 0.802869. That is the single net equivalent, or the net decimal equivalent. So then the discount is going to be 1 minus that, or 0.197131. None of those is our answer yet. The trade discount is going to be found by taking that list price of $12,400 times that discount rate, 0.197131. To get 2444.42. And then the net price is going to be found by taking the 12,400 times the 0.802869. Now you might be asking, why didn't I just take the 12.4 and subtract the discount? I could have done that, but I like to use both of the rates and then compare to make sure that they do add up. So I get 99.5558. So as I was saying, I like to use both the discount rate and the net decimal equivalent. Get those two prices and then make sure they add up to the 12,400, and in this case they do. So that's just one way of kind of double checking to make sure I didn't make a really obvious mistake somewhere. So this is the net price, and this is the amount saved off the trade discount. Any questions? How many of you had those prices? Cool. Okay, so the next thing we need to talk about is cash discounts. Now, a cash discount was originally something you got for if you bought it when you got it. You walked into a store, you picked up an item, and it was very common back in the day that farmers and other private businesses, they'd buy something and they would put it on their account and they'd pay off their account at the end of the month. So cash discount started with, hey, if you pay for it right now when you pick it up, you'll give you a 2% off or 1% off or something like that, a little incentive to pay right away. Well, through time, it became less and less that people would actually walk into the store and pick up the items themselves, because stores became, the economy became much more interstate and spread out. It used to be when you're traveling by horse and wagon, you couldn't go very far to get your supplies. You had to get them locally. Well, with the travel and everything becoming easier, shipping becoming easier, now many of your distributors are far off and all the items are shipped to you. You don't actually go and pick anything up yourself anymore. Because of that, it's really tough to pay cash when you get something if you're not picking it up. So the cash discount has changed to be, you receive the discount if you pay in a very short period after the purchase, or after what's called the invoice date. Now that invoice date is the date that the purchase originates. Generally, it's the date that the supplier ships the merchandise. Now, there are modifiers to that we're going to look at as the night goes on. Sometimes there are things that are used to change that invoice date to give it an effective invoice date that's different from that origination. But for right now, to keep it simple, we're going to deal with that invoice date. So to define this cash discount, we're going to find something called the terms of sale. So the terms of a sale involve several things. One of them is the invoice date itself. The other one is going to be our time frames, our periods. And there's two of them. There's a cash discount period, or just a discount period. And then there's a credit period. Because you are buying the merchandise and it's being shipped to you and you're receiving the invoice, usually at the time of the delivery, the invoice is included with the merchandise. Sometimes you sign for it, sometimes you don't. You have so many days from the time you receive that invoice or from the origination of the invoice, depending on how the dating is working, to pay it off, or they're going to start charging you interest. So you get credit till a certain point to pay that off. That part of the terms of sale might look like this. That would be read as 2/5 net 30. 2/5 net 30. This first part here describes the discount period. The second term here describes the credit period. So if we do a number line here, let's say that our invoice date is March 8th. And we have 2/5 net 30 is the second part of our terms of sale. So we have an invoice date as the beginning of our timeline, which is March 8th. The 2/5 means that within 5 days of that invoice date, you have what's called the discount period. So 5 days past March 8th would be March 13th. If you pay in that period, the 2 means it's a 2% discount. So the first number, the 2, is a 2% discount. The 5 is the number of days from the invoice date. You have 5 days from the invoice date to claim your 2% discount. You claim it by making a payment. The second number, as we said, N30, describes the credit period. The credit period ends 30 days after. So March has 31 days. So 30 days after the 8th of March would be the 7th of April. This is your credit period. That means the net amount, the net price, is due at the end, by the end of that credit period. So you must pay by the end of the credit period, or the supplier can start charging you a predetermined interest rate. Now, obviously, finding these dates can be a little tricky. I don't expect you guys to have the calendar memorized so you can tick off dates in your head. In your book, if you have it with you, I believe it is page 396. Let me look in mine quick. And sure enough, there it is on page 396. There is a chart containing all of the days of the year. And that chart can be used to find these important dates. So for this one, March 3rd, you go to March, down to the 3rd is listed as 62. That is, March 3rd is the 62nd day of the year. Well, then to get to the 5 days for the discount period, you'd add 5 to that. This has to be 67 for the end of the discount period. So we find 67, and in the chart, that matches up with March 8th. Or sorry, I did that wrong. March 3rd is what I looked at March 3rd, and somehow I wanted March 8th. Let me try that again. So March 8th is the beginning of it as our invoice date. March 8th is what? 67. So we add 5 to that would be 72. So we look up 72. That's March 13th, which is what we had, is the end of our discount period. Now for the credit period, we go back to that invoice date, 67. It's a net 30. So 67 plus 30 is going to give us 97. So the end of our credit period is day 97. We look that up. 97 is April 7th. So that was the correct date. So let's take a look at this time. Now, another thing I'm going to warn you about here, you'll notice 3/8, 3/13, 4/7, those are dates. So that notation, 3/8, could mean March 8th. But we just saw that 210 net 30, where that same slash, that same notation is used to indicate a discount in a period. So that 2 is the 2% discount, the 10 is the number of days in a discount period. Or N30 net 30, net means the net amount is due, and the 30 means 30 days after the invoice. So it indicates periods. And we also saw back to the very beginning of this lecture that 8-3 or whatever can represent a chain trade discount. So whenever we see this notation, one number slash another number, we have to be very careful that we know what it is indicating, because it's used over and over again for several different items. So anyway, let's take a look at an invoice date. November 2nd. The terms of sale are 110 net 30. So I'm going to set up my number line here. The beginning of my number line is November 2nd, so 11/2. If I look up in my table here, November 2nd is 306. That's day 306. How long is the discount period for this particular invoice? 10 days. So 306 plus 10 is 316. If I look that up in my chart here, 316 corresponds to November 12th. That's easy enough. 2 plus 10 is the 12th. 2nd plus 10 is the 12th. What percent discount do I get if I pay within that period? 1%. So 1% discount if paid between the 2nd and the 12th of November.
Is
Who knows? Depends. I mean, it's $12,000. It's $120. If you do that a lot, that's okay. Now, how long do they have from the invoice date to pay off the net price? How long is their credit period? 30 days. So 306 again plus 30 is 336. We look up 336, that is December 2nd. And of course, that is the end of the credit period. It must be paid by that date or they start to charge interest. Well, it all depends. Could be 3%, could be 12%, could be 24%. Who knows? Oftentimes in stuff like this, the common percents are 6%, 12%, 18, and 24. Anybody guess why? Yeah, interest is charged every month, so they're right on the 0.5% per month. If you take them and divide them by 12, you get your 0.5% per month. Okay, it is time for our break, so let's take our break. It is now 6:20. Let's come back at 6:30 to start hour 2.